Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by asking you a question. What would your life look like if you mastered just a few habits that could completely transform your future? Because here's the truth. Your habits are either designing your destiny or they are destroying it. You don't decide your future, you decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. And the habits I'm about to share with you changed my life forever. I wasn't born wealthy. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. In fact, I grew up struggling, broke, and frustrated. But I discovered that if I could change my habits, I could change my results. And I'm telling you today, if you grab hold of these habits, you won't just change your life. You'll change your family's life for generations to come. Let me ask you something. What's the difference between a person who continues to struggle for years and the person who rises to wealth? Influence and freedom, it's not luck. It's not background. It's not even talent. It's the discipline of what they put into their mind every single day. Your mind is your greatest asset, and if you want to change your life, you must change what you feed your mind. Ignorance is expensive, and it will cost you opportunities, it will cost you income, and it will cost you peace. The only way to overcome it is to make learning a daily discipline, not a casual option. Here's the truth most people miss: the brain doesn't stop growing when school ends. In fact, the real education begins the moment you leave the classroom. Too many people get a diploma and stop growing, stop reading, stop listening, stop sharpening themselves. And that's why they get stuck. But wealthy people, leaders, and winners, they never stop learning. They understand that every problem they face is a problem of knowledge, and every solution that transforms their life comes from acquiring understanding they didn't have before. You don't have a money problem, you have a knowledge problem. You don't have a relationship problem, you have a wisdom problem. And the difference between where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow is what you decide to put into your mind right now. Think about this: if your mind is the engine that drives your future, then the content you consume is the fuel. The question is, are you filling your tank with premium or with poison? Most people fill their mind with entertainment, gossip, negativity, and then wonder why their life feels stuck in neutral. But when you start feeding your mind with wisdom, with scripture, with strategies, with stories of people who already walked the road you want to walk, you begin to reprogram your thinking. And as your thinking shifts, your results shift. I'll never forget when I started making the decision to invest in my own education, not just through school, but through books, seminars, mentors, and the Word of God. At first, it felt like nothing was changing. But over time, my perspective widened. I saw opportunities I used to miss. I had confidence I didn't used to carry. And eventually, the earning followed the learning. The more I grew in wisdom, the more doors began to open. It wasn't overnight, but it was inevitable. Because the principle is clear: transformation happens first in your mind before it ever shows up in your reality. Somebody listening to me right now needs to hear this. You are one book away from a breakthrough. You are one idea away from a fortune. You are one conversation away from a destiny shift. But you'll never access it if you treat learning like an afterthought. Make it a habit. Set aside time daily to study, to listen, to grow. Even if it's only 30 minutes a day, the compound effect of that discipline will change your entire trajectory. Because small disciplines practiced daily create massive shifts over time. And don't just learn anything, be intentional. Study the subjects that move your life forward. If you want financial freedom, study wealth principles. If you want better health, study nutrition and fitness. If you want stronger faith, study Scripture. Don't just consume information randomly. Curate your inputs carefully, because the quality of what goes in determines the quality of what comes out. Here's the hook. Your future is already being shaped by the information you're consuming right now. 5 years from today, you'll either be glad you developed the habit of disciplined learning, or you'll regret that you wasted time scrolling, binging, and distracting yourself. You can't plant weeds and expect a harvest of wheat. You can't pour in garbage and expect greatness. But if you will guard your mind like the treasure it is and feed it like the weapon it's designed to be, you'll find yourself operating at a level you once thought was impossible. Let me begin with a question that could change everything for you. How do you start your day? Because the way you start your day determines the way you live your life. Most people start their mornings scrolling through social media, filling their minds with problems, distractions, and negativity. And then they wonder why their day feels heavy, why their energy feels drained, and why they can't seem to break through. But champions, leaders, and wealthy individuals start their day differently. They begin with gratitude and faith, because gratitude attracts abundance and faith produces action. Gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It's a mindset, a perspective, a lens through which you see your life. When you wake up and decide to focus on what's working instead of what's missing, everything changes. Gratitude shifts your energy. Gratitude repositions your heart. Gratitude opens doors because it attracts more of what you're thankful for. You cannot complain your way into abundance, but you can thank your way into it. When I learned to make gratitude my daily starting point, I stopped focusing on limitations and began seeing possibilities that were always there, but hidden by my complaints. Faith, on the other hand, is the fuel that turns possibility into reality. Faith is believing in things you cannot yet see. Faith is trusting that God is working behind the scenes even when the evidence isn't visible. Faith creates movement. And here's the truth. Nothing in your life will change until your faith is greater than your fear. Too many people allow fear to paralyze them, but faith empowers you to take action even in uncertainty. When I began my days with gratitude to God and faith in His promises, I started walking into situations with boldness. Instead of waiting for proof, I acted on belief, and those actions produced results that fear could never achieve. Here's a hook you cannot ignore. Your mornings are your foundation. If you lay bricks of gratitude and beams of faith at the start of your day, you're building a structure that can withstand storms. But if you begin with worry, stress, and doubt, you're building on sand, and the first challenge will knock you down. The habit of starting your day with gratitude and faith is not just spiritual, it's practical. Science even shows that people who practice gratitude experience less stress, stronger relationships, and better decision making. Faith builds resilience. Gratitude strengthens focus. Together, they make you unstoppable. I remember seasons in my life when everything felt uncertain, when money was tight, when challenges surrounded me. I could have woken up complaining. I could have chosen doubt. But instead, I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for, prayed in faith, and declared God's promises over my day. That habit shifted my entire being. Problems didn't disappear instantly, but my perspective made them smaller, and my faith made me stronger. Soon enough, what once looked like obstacles began looking like opportunities. And let me tell you this, gratitude is the seed, faith is the water, and together they grow the tree of abundance. One without the other is incomplete. Gratitude keeps you humble and thankful, for what you have, while faith keeps you hungry and expectant for what's coming. Gratitude grounds you in the present, while faith propels you into the future. Here's what you need to realize. The enemy of your soul wants you distracted, discouraged, and doubtful. That's why your mornings are the battleground. If you let negativity win at sunrise, you'll fight uphill all day. But if you anchor your mornings with gratitude and faith, you're already walking in victory before the world even starts moving. So let me ask you, when you open your eyes tomorrow morning, what will you choose? Will you reach for your phone and scroll through other people's lives? Or will you reach for gratitude and faith that can transform your own? Because the way you answer that question daily will decide the quality of your future. Let me drop a truth on you that most people don't want to hear. Wealth doesn't show up by accident. It shows up by design. And if you don't learn the habit of managing money with discipline, you will never experience the freedom, impact, and legacy that wealth is designed to provide. Money is not a mystery. Money follows principles. And the principle is simple. Poor people spend money to look rich, but wealthy people invest money to become rich. The way you treat a dollar determines how many dollars will ever come into your hands. Most people believe money is about how much you make, but wealth is really about how much you keep, how much you multiply, and how much you put to work for you. I've seen people with 6-figure salaries who are still broke, and I've seen people with humble incomes build wealth that lasts generations. What makes the difference? The habit, the discipline, the mindset that says, I will not let money control me. I will master money, and I will make money my servant. Here's the hook you need to catch. If you don't tell your money where to go, it will leave you. Every dollar you receive is either a seed or a sacrifice. If you consume it, it's gone forever. But if you invest it, it grows, multiplies, and begins to work even when you're sleeping. Wealthy people understand this. That's why they don't chase money. They design systems that make money chase them. I remember when I first learned this principle, I realized I had been doing what most people do, spending first and trying to save later. But that formula never works because expenses rise to meet income. If you make $2,000, you'll find a way to spend $2,000. If you make a $20,000, you'll find a way to spend $20,000. The habit that changed my life was flipping the formula. I learned to save and invest first and spend later. That one shift transformed my financial future. I wasn't waiting until I had extra to build wealth, because extra never comes. I decided wealth was not something I'd get to someday. It was something I would practice every day. Here's what most people don't understand. Discipline with small amounts creates mastery with large amounts. If you can't manage 100, you won't manage 10,000. If you can't manage 10,000, you won't manage 100,000. Wealth is not built on what you want to do later. It's built on what you consistently do right now. So when I started treating every dollar like a soldier and assigning it to a mission, some to save, some to invest, some to give, some to spend, my money began to multiply. And what multiplies in your hands gives you the power to multiply impact in the world. Here's another hook for you. Your habits with money are not just financial, they're spiritual. The way you handle money reflects your stewardship. Are you honoring God with your increase? Are you preparing for your children and your children's children? Are you investing in opportunities that multiply, or are you consuming to impress people who don't even care? Every decision is shaping not just your bank account, but your character. And let's talk about investment for a moment. Too many people think investment is risky, But here's what I've learned. Not investing is the real risk. Inflation eats your savings. Time eats your opportunities. Fear eats your future. But wise investments, whether in your mind, your business, real estate, or other vehicles, turn today's sacrifice into tomorrow's abundance. I'm not talking about gambling. I'm talking about building wealth God's way with wisdom, patience, and discipline. So I challenge you to shift your perspective. Stop seeing money as something to spend and start seeing it as something to sow. Because when you treat money like seed, you never look at a dollar the same way again. That dollar has the potential to grow into more, to produce fruit that feeds your family, blesses others, and changes generations. And the question you have to ask yourself is simple. Are you going to keep spending money to look like you have wealth? Or are you going to develop the habits that actually create wealth? Because the choice you make daily with your dollars is the choice that decides your destiny. Let me ask you a question that might sting a little. Who are you spending the most time with? Because the truth is, the people you surround yourself with will either pull you up or drag you down. You cannot rise higher than the environment you choose to stay in. If you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. If you spend your days around complainers, doubter excuse makers, don't be surprised when your life starts to look just like theirs. But if you intentionally surround yourself with people who dream bigger, believe stronger, and act faster, their habits, their energy, and their mindset will rub off on you and elevate your life. Here's the hook. You don't catch success, you catch environments. Just like you can catch a cold from the people around you, you can also catch laziness, mediocrity, and negativity. But the good news is you can catch success, excellence, and wealth if you place yourself in the right circle. Your proximity determines your possibilities. Every major breakthrough in my life was connected to a relationship, a mentor, or an environment that challenged me to stretch beyond where I was. Most people underestimate the power of association. They think they can grow while keeping the same circle that keeps them stuck. But you cannot climb to the top of the mountain if you're still hanging out with people who are committed to the valley. I'm not saying you abandon everyone in your life. What I'm saying is you must become intentional about who has the most influence on your thinking. Because whoever shapes your thinking is shaping your future. I remember when I was struggling, trying to figure out how to move forward, and I looked at the people I was around daily. Most of them were satisfied with being average. They weren't talking about building wealth. They weren't talking about changing lives. They weren't talking about walking by faith. And here I was trying to grow, but I was trying to grow in soil that wasn't fertile. That's when I made a decision to change my environment. I sought out mentors. I invested in communities of achievers. I put myself around people who were living at the level I wanted to reach. And the shift was dramatic. Here's another hook. Sometimes the fastest way to change your life is not by learning something new, but by changing who you listen to. One conversation with the right person can open a door that years of effort on your own never could. Proximity gives you access. Access gives you acceleration, and acceleration changes everything. Now let's be clear, association is not just about success, it's about standards. If you want to raise your standards, surround yourself with people who refuse to settle for less. If you want to walk in faith, surround yourself with people who believe bigger than you do. If you want to grow in wealth, get around people who understand how money works, because exposure expands expectation. When you see what's possible for others up close, you begin to believe it's possible for you too. But let me warn you, this principle works both ways. If you allow yourself to constantly absorb negativity, fear, and small thinking, it will infect your spirit. If your friends laugh at your dreams, if your circle doubts your vision, if your environment is satisfied with mediocrity, you'll eventually shrink to fit their level. That's why you must guard your circle as carefully as you guard your money, because the wrong circle will bankrupt your future faster than a bad investment. So ask yourself today, who is in your ear? Who do you allow to speak into your life? Who do you spend time with? Because the answer to those questions is already predicting your future. If you don't like where your life is headed, you may not need a new plan. You may just need a new circle. Let me share with you one of the most overlooked truths about success. Ideas don't change lives, execution does. Everybody has ideas. Everybody has dreams. Everybody has goals. But the difference between those who achieve and those who only imagine is simple action. Not just action when it feels good, not just action when it's convenient, but consistent, relentless execution. You can't wish your way into wealth, you can't hope your way into freedom, and you can't pray your way into results without pairing faith with action. The Bible says faith without works is dead, and dreams without execution are just daydreams. Here's the hook. You don't get paid for what you know. You get paid for what you do. Knowledge is potential power, but applied knowledge is unstoppable power. Too many people are waiting until they know enough or until they feel ready before they act. But let me break it down for you. You will never feel ready. You will never know everything. You have to move with what you know right now. Imperfect action beats perfect procrastination every single time. Think about it. How many opportunities have passed you by because you were waiting for the stars to align? How many times have you talked yourself out of a move because you didn't feel prepared? The truth is, preparation doesn't create confidence. Execution does. Every time you take action, you gain clarity. Every time you move, you learn. Every time you execute, even if you make mistakes, you're still further along than the person who's waiting for perfect conditions. I remember early in my journey, I had big dreams but very little knowledge. I could have let that hold me back, but I made a decision. I would learn as I went. I would move with what I had, and I would adjust along the way. And that decision, that habit of execution, opened doors I never could have imagined. Opportunities didn't come to me because I knew everything. They came because I was willing to move when others stood still. Here's another hook you need to grab. Motion creates momentum. When you start, even with small steps, you create energy that builds. But when you hesitate, you kill momentum before it's born. Most people lose not because they're incapable, but because they refuse to start. They wait for motivation instead of creating it. But action is the cure for hesitation. Action is the cure for doubt. Action is the cure for fear. And let me be clear, execution is not about being reckless. It's about being decisive. It's about refusing to let opportunities slip by while you're still stuck analyzing. Analysis has its place, but over-analysis leads to paralysis. Wealthy people act quickly and adjust along the way. They understand that time is the most valuable asset and hesitation is the most expensive liability. When you develop the habit of relentless execution, something shifts inside you. You stop being controlled by fear. You stop being paralyzed by uncertainty. You stop waiting for permission. Instead, you move with authority, with confidence, with faith. And as you execute, you separate yourself from the majority because most people will always be waiting for someday. But someday is not a day on the calendar. Someday is just an excuse for never. So let me challenge you right now. What is the one thing you've been delaying? What is the one move you've been waiting to make? Stop waiting. Stop hesitating. Take the step. Make the call. Launch the business. Write the book. Start the program, because the longer you wait, the further away your breakthrough moves. But the moment you execute, you step into momentum, and momentum is the force that carries you to success. And remember this, you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it going, because execution is the bridge between vision and victory. And if you will build the habit of relentless execution, you won't just dream about success. You will live it. If you want to know the real secret to transformation, it's not found in one big decision. It's found in the daily disciplines you repeat until they become habits. Success is not an event. It's a process. Wealth is not luck. It's a pattern. Change is not magic. It's a habit. Your habits are the architects of your future. And whether you realize it or not, they're already building your tomorrow. The question is, are they building the life you want or the life you fear? Here's the hook. Your future is hiding inside your daily routine. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. Goals are good for setting direction, but habits are what keep you moving in that direction when motivation fades. Most people think success comes from big moments, but the truth is, it comes from small, consistent actions nobody sees. You don't win championships in the spotlight. You win them in the unseen hours of practice, preparation, and repetition. Think about your life right now. Everything you are experiencing is the harvest of habits you planted years ago. Your finances reflect your money habits. Your health reflects your eating and exercise habits. Your relationships reflect your communication habits. Nothing happens by accident. Your habits are producing fruit, whether good or bad. If you don't like the harvest, you don't fix it by wishing, you fix it by planting new seeds of discipline. When I started to shift my habits, everything in my life shifted with them. I stopped wasting time on distractions and started using that time to build skills. I stopped letting money slip through my fingers and started treating every dollar as seed. I stopped complaining about what I didn't have and started cultivating gratitude for what I did. And those small daily decisions, compounded over time, created breakthroughs I could never have imagined. Here's another hook. Small hinges swing big doors. The little choices you repeat daily may not look powerful in the moment, but they determine the size of the doors that open for you later. One habit of reading 20 minutes a day turns into knowledge that separates you from the crowd. One habit of saving 10% of every dollar turns into a financial cushion that gives you freedom. One habit of exercising consistently turns into health that gives you decades of energy. You can't always see the impact today, but you will feel the weight of the results tomorrow. Most people underestimate the compound effect. They want instant change, instant results, instant gratification. That's why they quit before the habit takes root. But wealth, health, and success are built in layers. You don't plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow. You plant, you water, you nurture, and then in due season you reap. That's why habits matter. They're not glamorous, but they are unstoppable. And let me warn you, bad habits work just as powerfully as good ones. A habit of procrastination compounds into missed opportunities. A habit of overspending compounds into financial bondage. A habit of negative thinking compounds into self-sabotage. Every habit is taking you somewhere. The only question is whether it's taking you closer to your destiny or further away from it. So what's the move? Start small, start now, and start consistently. Don't wait until it feels comfortable, because habits aren't built in comfort. They're built in commitment. Choose one habit that aligns with the future you desire and practice it daily until it becomes second nature. Because once it becomes who you are, it doesn't just change your actions, it changes your identity. And that's the final hook. The habits you build today will decide who you become tomorrow. If you want a life of freedom, wealth, and purpose, build the habits that create freedom, wealth, and purpose. If you want a legacy that outlives you, build the habits that outlive you. Because your habits aren't just building your future. They're building your family's future, your destiny, and your legacy.